On today's episode, we have Greg Dunn here to share his story of overcoming Wicca, self-harm, alcoholism, and drug addiction to live a life with God. I'm Adam Vibe Gunton, and this is the Recovered on Purpose show. The black represents the darkness from which we came. The white represents the light in which we now live. And the red represents the passion it takes to live Recovered on Purpose. All right, guys, today's episode is brought to you by Recovered on Purpose. Recovered on Purpose was founded with the vision of raising up an army of recovered addicts to tell their stories in powerful and impactful ways to free others suffering from the bondage of addiction, as well as tell our stories in the school system to deter the future generations from going down the path of addiction. If this sounds like you and you want to be part of this mission, go ahead and drop a message to this page and let me know a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your story. I'm looking for people to interview on this show, as well as do lives on this page. And very soon, we'll be doing a program to teach people how to speak in schools. Love you guys so much, and I'll talk to you soon. All right, guys, so Greg has been a computer programmer for over 25 years. He has been building apps and video games for the past decade, and is now focused on his life with God and teaching others how to build their own visions of games and apps. Greg, thank you so much for being here, brother.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Man, I love that. I love that hat. I love the backdrop, looking good. Looking ready to go.
Thanks.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about, we at the Recovered on Purpose show, we start the show with some relation. And obviously, at the beginning of this, we said that you were practicing Wicca. We haven't talked about that on this show yet, so I'm excited to get into that. And then self-harm. And the self-harm thing, that wasn't something that I experienced personally with the self-harm that we usually talk about. I mean, a lot of drug addiction is self-harm, but I definitely am looking forward to getting into that because I know that that's something that a lot of people in recovery or in active addiction actually struggle with. So Greg, tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your past and history.
So I am almost 49. I grew up in Louisiana, and as a result, started drinking at a very early age. Started drinking pretty heavily and pretty often at 14. I probably drank more over the next 8 years than a lot of people will in their life. I heard a great quote one time that one drink is too many and 1,000 is never enough. This was after I was recovered, and I thought, that right there, yes, that was it. One is too many and 1,000 is never enough. That sums it up. So yeah, I got into Wicca as a teenager. I didn't see that as conflicting with the religion that I'd grown up with. I grew up Catholic, but in Louisiana. And I was in North Louisiana, not near New Orleans, but all through Louisiana, there's a lot of pervasive kind of voodoo influence and a lot of very mixed kind of people partake in things and just don't think anything different about it. Yeah. And so I didn't see the Wicca as being all that different. I'm like, no. I'm a good witch. I use I use my magic for good, only for good, never for bad.
Right. So for those of us that are, let's say, very elementary with our understanding of what Wicca is, can you explain what it means to be practicing Wicca?
Now, I was not like a super hardcore. I was mostly kind of self-taught from books and things like that I did. But I mean, basically, it's summed up by Aleister Crowley in the beginning of some of his books on it. As basically the law was, and if it harms nobody, do what you will. And if it harms none, do as thou will. But basically the idea of Wicca, at least what I was involved with, was not the religious aspects as much. I had some friends that were in covens and met and stuff like that, but it was more of bringing things into being simply by willing it to be so. And you might think, okay, yeah, there's no way, but you'd be surprised at some of the crazy stuff that happened around me and several of the people I knew that practiced with. So I did that, and that kind of furthered my descent. And as everything in my life spiraled more and more and more. The demonic side was flaring up more and more and more in my dreams, especially. I used to do lucid dreaming, which is where you realize you're dreaming while you're dreaming, and then you can take control of the dream and do whatever you want.
Yeah.
And I would have battles with these unseen evil things. This was before and after I got saved. And I say that Holy Spirit taught me spiritual warfare over the course of my dreams, over the course of several years. But I used to battle with these things, but I would wake up and I'd think, oh, I just need to do another protection spell, and that's going to help me in this. So it's an insidious kind of thing, because you just don't realize the deceptions that are happening there.
Yeah. And I've actually heard somebody actually literally say things like that, like, yeah, I've been having bad dreams and I just need to do another protection spell. I've literally heard somebody use that exact same term for it. And actually, I don't know if it was practicing Wicca per se, but like I actually had a period of my life where I openly talked to and got demons to do my will for me. And I actually share this in my book, From Chains to Saved, about a time where I sat down and I had just left this event where this guy was like teaching us how to talk to spirits and how to get them to do things. And I go to this poker table and I set this water next to me and I open the water up, because apparently the spirits love water, because they roam around the earth looking for water because they can't quench their thirst. So I set this over and I like literally tell the spirit of gambling to show me what he's got. Those are my words. And I only had $20. And the first hand I had like 10-3 offsuit, which is not a good hand at all, right? That's you always fold that. But I went all in. And 2 other people called, and the flop came 10-10-3. So there's some legit things with this, and I smile because it doesn't say anywhere in our faith that other spirits or other gods don't exist, right? It doesn't say that. So all of this stuff is real. The practicing of Wicca, the forces of good and evil, that's all real. So where did it start to go from there? And where did the self-harm start coming in?
I'll answer the second question first. I don't even remember where and when and why I started self-harming. Mm-hmm. Now, a lot of my earlier years, I just don't remember, and whether that was the alcohol or age or probably a combination of both, I don't know. But I was doing it from as early as I could remember until I got saved. Sometimes it was I used to say, if I hurt on the outside, it doesn't hurt on the inside as bad, which I think was probably way more true than I would have cared to admit. Other times I did it just to freak people out. I remember carving a pentagram in my arm and rolling up my shirt sleeve at the Motley Crue concert because I thought it was funny, because I knew there were going to be protesters there. And I, cut myself to bleed in front of people just to watch their reaction.
Wow.
Where it all led. So the craziest thing, as I got more and more and more, there were a couple events that happened about a year before I got saved that really kind of got me going, wow, okay. I used to say a lot that, oh, I don't believe in hell because I've seen all kinds of things and, I don't believe it. Whatever.
Yeah.
And I had this, and I used to have these dreams, that were bad, and they would usually, the bad part, and a lot of times it'd be a normal dream, but then I'd end up in one of 2 places. I would end up in my mom's sewing room, which we'd converted half the garage into, or in the house I grew up in, or the living room of the house that I lived in with my mom in my late teens and early 20s. One of those 2 places. It would always end up there. And I'd have all these things and I'm there and it's dark and I can't will the lights on or anything in the dream. And all these things on all sides are just coming in, and it would just, everything's normal. And then I'm there and then I'm trying to, and everything's in and I wake up. I hated it. Wow. It's bad. Yeah. And I used to say, oh, I don't believe in a hell, blah, 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 blah. And one night, actually one day I went to sleep, took a nap during the day because of good, and had this dream. And in the dream, things were normal. I ended up in the place. Everything was bad. I woke up. Man, I hate dreams like that. I hate dreams like that. I hate dreams like that. Man. And I realized I was still dreaming. And then I was back in the living room and all the things again, just, and I woke up. Oh, I hate that. I hate that. I hate that. But this time I knew I was still dreaming, and the room was swirling white. And I was trying to grab I almost named it by name, but people go Google the book, but I went and I was in the dream. I'm trying to grab my book of spells and read this, and everything's swirling, and I'm back in that room and everything. And then I woke up again and everything was calm. And I looked up and the stars are out. I went, wait a minute, why are the stars out? And I realized I was still dreaming. And then back in that place, and then all the things. Somewhere along one of these, Linger by the Cranberries was played on the radio, which was a cruel joke. In the dream, about the fourth or fifth time this happened, finally I woke up. It was daytime, like it was when I went to sleep. Everything was calm. Everything was normal. I was awake. Oh, I hate those dreams. I hate those dreams. I hate those dreams. And I got up, opened the door of my room, walked into the hallway, saw my mom sitting in the doorway of her room, folding towels. I said, yeah, I just had the worst dream. You wouldn't believe. And she looked at me and goes, how do you know when you're dreaming? And I realized I still was. And then from there, I went to my friend's garage. It was a friend that I practiced Wicca with and drank a lot with. And I don't remember much about it, or in his carport, but there was me and there was somebody on either side of me, and there were three people that we were facing off against. And I remember in the dream praying, God, you've got to get me out of this. I don't like this. I don't want this. No. And I finally woke up for real that time. And then I realized there might still be some things I hadn't seen yet. And there was probably a hell, and I was probably going there.
Wow. So these dreams were just, they were what were opening up your eyes to what was really going on in your spiritual life, were these dreams?
Yeah. I didn't really know it all at the time. That one definitely woke me up. And I asked my mom I was like, it always happens in one of these two rooms. And she said, well, the only thing I can think of that they would have in common is, she said, I used to keep my tarot cards in the sewing room. And I didn't know she had tarot cards. And she said, and we went into the living room and she opened up the drawer on the table, and that was her deck of tarot cards.
Wow.
And I believe that was, and she had some occult things happen. Like she read tarot cards for somebody when she was young and said they were going to get in an accident, and they did, and it freaked her out, and she burned them and threw them away. But somewhere along the way, she picked up another deck. Somebody told her a lie at one point. They were laying hands on her, praying for the gifts of the Holy Spirit and praying in tongues, and she didn't get it right away. And they're like, have you ever dabbled in the occult? Because if you have, that's why you're not getting it. And so she went her whole life thinking that she was excluded from that. And I assured her after I got saved, that's a lie from the pit of hell. That is not, what you did was not too powerful for God to overcome. You don't have any permanent black marks on your record because of that.
Right. Yeah. And I remember when I was practicing that stuff, or allowing people to practice it on me or whatever, I actually had my tarot cards read 3 different times. And all 3 times, I don't really understand how they get read or whatever, and I don't remember everything they said about it, but all 3 times in that point of my life, I was the fool. Like, they pulled out the Joker or the Fool, and like the guy that's always carrying the bag of tricks. All 3 times I had my tarot cards read, that was the card that got pulled for me. So it's just really interesting. I wouldn't have my tarot cards read anymore just because my own spiritual beliefs and stuff. But guys, we're gonna go into after break what happened that got Greg saved and what it's looking like now. See you in just a second. Today's episode is brought to you by Recovered on Purpose. Guys, Recovered on Purpose was founded with the mission of raising you up, to tell your story in a powerful way to help others get free from this addiction. Guys, and if you want a free copy of my book, From Chains to Saved, One Man's Journey Through the Spiritual Realm of Addiction, I give away the digital and audio copy totally free on my website, recoveredonpurpose.com. Just subscribe at the bottom. And again, I have no idea how to use an email list or anything yet. I literally just want to give you my copy of my book for free. Love you guys, and we'll see you right after break. All right, guys, welcome back. Before the break, we were obviously talking about Greg's practicing of Wicca and some of the things that both of us have experienced in that realm. So, Greg, tell me where this went to and kind of the process of your getting saved and your experience with God.
So there was a couple of different times when I mixed pot and LSD because I didn't know any better. And that results in a very unpleasant experience. I could spend hours on either one, but I'll give you the short version. So the first time I just turned 21, we were going to a frat party 30 minutes away and dropped acid before we went. Smoked pot while we were there. Nobody was there, so we ended up driving back 30 minutes away, which was significant because it was on the way back that A, a thunderstorm hit, and B, the drugs really kicked in. So everything, like the windshield wipers were going along, and then they would slow down and they would stop. Wow. And I would have to move my head around for everything to be going again. And my friend's moving, and he's talking, and he's looking over at me while he's driving, and everything would slow down and stop. And I'd have to shake my head, and then he's back again. And so I had this crazy 30-minute in the rain drive from hell back. And then I'm like, I just want to go home. And then he drives past my house and decides we're going to go get some beer. So he stops at the gas station. He's in there for like, 20 minutes arguing with the lady about whether it's after midnight or not. Meanwhile, I'm sitting in the running car, not really sure if everything that I'm seeing is happening around me or not. And I keep wanting to like reach over and see if he's there, but I think, no, I'm gonna touch him and we're gonna wreck, and we might still be driving down the interstate because the car was running. Finally he comes back, drops me off. So just drink beer, just go sleep it off. It's probably around 11 or 12 at this point. I go up, I try to get in my house. My key looks like it doesn't have any ridges and it's warped. And so I fiddle with that for what feels like forever. Finally get in the house. I get in, I think I'm gonna try to do something. I kept thinking, I've done this before. I kept thinking, I remember all this happening. I got to do something different. Tried some different things. None of it worked. And I remember going to the bathroom and looking in the mirror and kind of looking at my face. And for a moment I thought, wait, am I getting ready to go out again? I'm like, no. Like that day had repeated. And I really legitimately thought I had died and I was in hell, that we'd wrecked on the side of the road somewhere. And at one point I kind of heard real faint, like, doctor, we're losing him. And I thought I died and gone to hell, and I was going to have to relive either that day or that whole life as a result of the life I'd lived. And I'm like, wow, man, the way that night ended, after all this other crazy stuff, I put on the Eric Clapton Journeyman album. And Eric Clapton Journeyman, almost every song spoke to me tremendously. He says, don't be pretending. But then he's got other songs, like Mama said there'd be hard times, but don't forget to pray. And lately I've been running on faith. What else is a poor boy, to do? And had enough bad love. And I'm like, yeah, I've had enough bad love. I want something I can be proud of. And he had this one song called Run So Far, one-way street can only run so far. And in the bridge, he says, I pray that you might make it through. And so this whole album, like all of a sudden, this whole album is just speaking to me. And at the end of the last song, when they're all hitting the snares and everything, and bam, and I heard this little thing, so I'm like, what's that? And I played it back and heard it again. And it sounded a lot like God. I thought, huh. And I went outside. It was about 4 a.m. at this point, and it was snowing. Now, it does not snow very often in Louisiana at all. But I looked up at the snow and I thought, I think everything's going to be all right. That was the beginning of the end. About a year later, I made the same, choice of pot and acid. It was hash, anyway. Was hanging at a friend's house. It was March 31st, Holy Thursday, the Catholics knew it as. And I remember there was a guy there that, the only thing I really knew about this guy is he was one of those people that practiced witchcraft, or no, actually, he didn't do witchcraft. He's a Satanist. That guy's a Satanist. Oh, yeah. Why are we hanging out with him? And that's all I really knew about the guy. Because he was in that small group of people at the high school that everybody's like, oh, they're Satanists. They worship Satan. I don't know if it's true or not. Anyway, the mix of pot and acid ended up with me freaking out again, thinking maybe I think I'm dead. Maybe this whole year, maybe this year is what I'm reliving. Maybe it's the whole life that I'm reliving. I thought my friend was actually Satan. I started to, I just want to go home. I just want to go home. I just want to go home. And he's like, well, leave, I don't want you here. And I was saying it more kind of metaphorically than anything else. Like, I don't want to be here anymore. And he's like, well, leave. And so I got in my car and I thought, I'm going to have to let everything go. And I'm going to have to sit back and let God take control, let God take the wheel. And so I put my car in a drive and just sat back. He was standing there waiting for me to leave. So he starts freaking out, trying to pull the car. I was driving like a 77 Monte Carlo. So, I mean, there's no holding that thing back. And it rolled off the edge of the driveway, which was not like a super steep cliff or anything, but it rolled down and rolled down a hill and hit a tree. And I busted, I got a scar still on my lip here from where my teeth came through. And my glasses came off at that point, so I couldn't see. So he's really freaking out now. And his mom's going to be home soon. And at this point, it's Friday, April 1st, Good Friday, which is the day that Jesus died. And I was, and he brought me back inside. And I'm like, I just want to leave. I just want to go home. He's freaking out. And I'm like, I don't want you in my life anymore. And again, I'm talking to him, but I'm talking to Satan is what I think. And he's like, well, I don't want you in my life anymore. Well, get out, And then I was like, no, I'm your friend. I'm here to help. And all this was like the devil going, no, you got it all wrong.
Wow.
So when the cops showed up, I was standing on the toilet, literally trying to push myself into the light because I just want to be in the light. I just want to be in the light. I just want to be in the light. So they came, got in the bathroom. They handcuffed me. They took me out. I did what anybody would do in that state. I tried to run. Not a good idea. So they caught me. They hogtied me. Then they strapped me handcuffed to a medical board because the ambulance was there too because they didn't know. And my friend called the cops. He's like, hey, me and my friend were hanging out watching cartoons and we heard this big crash and this other guy that we kind of know, but really, we didn't really know him well. And we certainly weren't hanging out with him all night, just crashed off my driveway. And, but I mean, I even heard the cops going, yeah, we're not stupid. We know. So I was strapped to a board, strapped to a stretcher, very unpleasant, while handcuffed and behind me, strapped to the board, took me to the hospital. And I'm trying to make this short, I promise. And I kept seeing, I had my eyes closed, but I kept seeing these lights kind of flash by, like if you've got your eyes closed and you're in the back of a car and there's trees and stuff coming through, except there's no windows in the back of an ambulance.
Right.
And so I thought that was weird. And I remember cracking smelling salts, and that woke me up once, and they did it again later, and it had no effect. I was just in my own world. So I spent a bunch of hours. They took me to the hospital where they take people that are freaking out or mentally, lost their mind or whatever, because they didn't know what's going on. They took me there. I spent a lot of time staring at the ceiling, strapped and handcuffed.
Wow.
I being raised Catholic, I thought I'm dead or maybe I'm dying and I need to call for a priest. I need to get my last rites. So I was calling for a priest. And I remember one of the doctors popping his head in the little, curtained off area where I was and saying, God's not going to help you now. And I just, oh man. And I cried, I wept, and it just freaked out. And this whole day, even before this, like when I'm laying on this guy's front porch and he's like throwing water or beer or something on my face, trying to bring me back, I'm laying there and I'm thinking, my life as I knew it is over. And that's okay. And I don't care who is not in my life anymore. I don't care if I have to give up all my friends, if I have to give up all my family, whatever it is, I've got to get out of this life. I can't do this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. I think I'm dead, but if I'm not, everything's got to change.
So you have like the willingness at that point to do whatever it takes to get freed.
Yes.
Yeah.
I counted the cost and said, whatever it is, it's worth it.
Yeah. So you gave your life to Jesus?
I did. And then later I did it again with the 700 Club, just to make it official, what we called them, after many, many hours of being strapped on this thing and all this other crazy stuff. That was the end of the beginning. That was April 1st, 1994, Good Friday. And yeah, it was about 6 months. I went to AA and NA meetings. Where I ended up moving back to Memphis a couple months into that and started going to meetings there and made some friends that I'm still in touch with. I did not keep going to the NA and AA meetings perpetually, but they were really important that first year.
Yeah.
It was about 6 months, I think, between the time I got saved and the time I actually finally had my last drinks and drugs.
And see, that was my experience also, because I got baptized in August of 2017 and wasn't able to actually get clean and sober until November of 2017. So I think that that's interesting that we both kind of had that experience where the salvation point is a process, and a lot of us have to be willing to do the work and continue to devote ourselves to this new life that we say that we made the decision for, in order to continue to grow and continue to progress for that, right? So what are you doing? What did you do once you actually got clean and sober? What did you do from that point on to kind of live your new life without drugs and alcohol? Because it's a crazy experience. That's one of those really bad trips that we hear about a lot. But some of us don't experience them. I did psychedelics. I did the acid, the mushrooms, and all that stuff. And I don't know why. I just never experienced a bad trip. So what happened after you actually quit using the drugs and alcohol?
Well, for one, I really spent the next 6 to 12 months still not sure if I was dead or alive. I kept thinking, I know what's about to happen. I'm about to turn this corner and there's a car going to run into me or something.
Wow.
I kept thinking, I know what's about to happen. I'm about to die.
Wow.
And I kept kind of picturing, especially on that first day in the hospital, like this, I was waiting for this epic battle of like everything turns black and I turn around and like there's this flaming sword and I have to get this and I have to kind of fight for my life, for my soul. I still had a lot of dreams over the course of time, even after I'd gotten saved, of fighting these things I couldn't see, but were evil things. Over time, I realized I was learning spiritual warfare. Over time, I realized it's less about what I can do. And when I stopped trying to actively fight them in the dreams, even though I could, and just said, Jesus, this is your fight. It's not mine.
Amen.
That made a big difference. There was one time where there was a couple of things that happened right around the same time, but this one dream that I remember going into this room, and the whole room, and it was this house that I'd always been in these rooms of in my dreams, and the whole room was swirling white again. And there was this painting over here, and this old man, and it was just like screaming and demonic and evil and all this. And I just sat there and I just said, Jesus, this is your battle. This is not mine. And then again, in the dream, because, in lucid dreams like that, you're fully conscious. You have decisions you can make. Yeah. And I woke up and I felt something go boop, 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 boop. And I was like, what was that? I think, and I realized, I think that house was me. I think that was me, that was cleaning out me. One of the key things, finding a church quickly, but one of the key things was a book by Neil Anderson called The Bondage Breaker. And he talks about, and he's got victory over the darkness, and victory over the darkness is like hey, if things aren't going well, read this. Bondage Breaker is, Chuck Swindoll is who I listened to on the radio, and he talked about, this woman that was having like visions of a snake in the bed with her, and this book, The Bondage Breaker. And I'm like, I need to get that book. Yeah. And I remember doing this book, and you get through the whole book, and I highlighted a bunch, and you get to the end, and there's the 7 steps of freedom, where you like list all the things you've done in all these different areas, self-harm and drug abuse and occult and all that. And you go through this list and you renounce everyone one by one. And I started on this and I stopped, and I got really tired and I fell asleep. And I woke up with this insane amount of pressure on my chest. I've heard, I don't know if I actually had a heart attack, but it was everything I could do and excruciating to roll over on my side. And I knew, I was like, this is spiritual. And I was like, I rebuke you in Jesus' name. And it got a little bit lighter, and I'm like, all right. So I called work. I'm like, I can't come in today. And I was able to fall back asleep. And when I woke up, I went through and I did all those things. I think it was after that I had the dream where the thing left. So it was awesome. I had to take some responsibility for what I did. And I had to go through and renounce them. And it's painful to list out, and I had like 2 columns on a page, and there's a lot of, just for the occult things and all the people and different areas and all this stuff, and list them all out. That getting involved with a really good Kingdom Holy Spirit church in, the first year. I found Jesse Duplantis, who was.
So it sounds like basically what you're talking about is kind of the 4th step in your own way. And guys, now that you've heard, there's all kinds of different things that can go on in recovery, in the process of recovering, and things that can happen in dreams, spiritual, all this. And the wonderful thing is that we all have our own path, our own journey towards this. And guys, we appreciate you being here, listening to Greg's story and being on the Recovered on Purpose show. Greg, thank you so much for being here and sharing your story with us.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
Awesome. We love you guys so much. And we'll see you next week. Bye. The black represents the darkness from which we came. The white represents the light in which we now live. And the red represents the passion it takes to live recovered on purpose.